All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Behind the Wheels podcast. I am your host, DJ R-Tistic. I would like to introduce you to my co-host, EB.
What's going on, everybody? I am EB, the writer, content creator, and blogger out of the planet of Brooklyn.
Brooklyn in the building, and I'm a DJ. You know, I DJ here and there, all around the world, and all that. So you got me and EB here together. This is Behind the Wheels. We talk about everything regarding Black music. That's past, present, and future. So we have a good show coming up for you today. We have a guest host who I've known literally for my entire life. So we're definitely looking forward to that. So before we get into it, before we get into our first segment, EB, I have a question. So you're out there in New York. I know you don't party like that. I know you're not out there in the club or
nah, not
whatever,
no more. Those days are behind me.
Those days are behind you. But you still go to some bars and stuff sometimes, I'm assuming, right?
Yeah, I definitely go to bars.
You do that. That's what Brooklyn is known for, especially right now.
Exactly.
So, yeah. I have a question. You know about, is it Dembow or Dembow music? Dembow?
I've never heard that term before in my life. What is that?
Same for me. Okay. So I'm not too far behind. So essentially, I learned about this a couple days ago. It's a new genre. I would say genre versus a subgenre that I think it initially the term came from Jamaica, from what I see it. I know Shabba Ranks is the one who had a song, that was called I think it's pronounced Dembow, for what I know, Dembow. Mm-hmm. And essentially, Shabba Ranks had a song that was mentioning that about 30 years ago, but it's currently a subgenre that's a genre that's big, especially in like the Dominican. I heard the Dominican and even Colombia, and
okay,
I listened to a lot of it because I was just I was on Instagram scrolling. And you know how a lot of these TikTok videos have like, what do you like better, Afro beats or dancehall? It'll be back-to-back songs. Do you like East Coast hip-hop, West Coast hip-hop, whatever? Yeah. And they had one of those type things with two DJs, and it said it was Afro beats versus Dembow. And I was like, what is Dembow? So I listened to it, and it was basically like a very fast style. Like, if I didn't know it was a title of it, I would have just thought it was like faster reggaeton, but it's a whole different pattern. The drum patterns are different from reggaeton. Mm-hmm. It's pretty fast. I would say it's probably the same speed as what they use for a lot of like merengue songs, but it sounds totally different. It has a very modern type of sound, and they're usually rapping in Spanish, but it does sound like I think most of the artists that I've seen are Dominican. So I've just been kind of researching that the last couple of
It just sounds like something that's probably playing up in Washington Heights, where it's a larger Dominican community. Maybe out in Bushwick and Brooklyn, they're probably listening to it. I personally haven't heard it, and now I'm curious that, especially because you were like almost like merengue, but it's a total different drum pattern. I'm just trying to imagine how it sounds, so I'm gonna have to look that up.
Yeah, because I would say it doesn't really sound like merengue, but it definitely has a lagging sound, but it's about that speed. It's a real fast, kind of 130, 135 BPM beat speed. But from talking to DJs in New York, some of them were surprised that I hadn't heard it yet. But overall, they said, of course, California doesn't really have a Dominican or a Colombian population. It's more so Mexican when it comes to anything of Latin descent. But I heard that even in the South, there's certain cities that you'll hear it even at a black party. So it looks like one of those waves that no huge songs have come from it, from what I've heard yet, but it looks like it might be one of those things in 2-3 years. It might be at the same level as how you hear reggaeton everywhere on the radio and at the clubs. So definitely something that I'm looking out for. From what I heard, I mean, it sounded decent. I could tell it's definitely cultural, where you can't just play it for a crowd who's not familiar, but it had high energy to it. So to me, I can see it going over with the Mexicans out here too.
Yeah, I'm like looking it up, and I'm seeing that it is Dominican in origin. So yeah, I guess I'm gonna have to start hanging out with our light skinned cousins. See what they're hitting on.
It is some of our cousins. I'll be out there at the end of the month too, so I'm definitely gonna see what it's talking about. So
bet
that's what that is. So let's go ahead and get into it. So our first segment is called the Rewind segment. With the Rewind, we like to highlight artists, producers, whatever it could be, groups from the past. Some are still making some waves, but mainly those who had their impact back in the day, and whoever it is that we feel deserves their flowers. So for this episode, who would you like to highlight for this one?
I gotta go with a New York legend, Harlem, Queens, Large Professor. He is somebody that I don't feel people don't show enough respect to. And a lot of the younger generation have no idea who he is, which is crazy to me. But because I love Main Source. I know him. He's started in Main Source. They had that album in '91 called Breaking Atoms, and looking at the front door is
Oh yes,
one of my favorite songs, and it came on randomly in a shuffle last week, and I was like, why people don't be talking about Large Professor like they should? But he started as a producer. Actually, he didn't join the Main Force until 1989. He was one of the founding members, but in 1990 he was producing for Eric B and Rakim. Main Source dropped Breaking Atoms in '91. Everybody should know looking at the front door, but it was a solid album. In '92, the group recorded a song for the White Men Can't Jump soundtrack called Faking the Funk. And immediately after they you know how it goes in business when you in a group and people don't see eye to eye. They broke up, and Main Source like quietly replaced him. Like, they didn't say a word, but what he did immediately after was signed a deal with Geffen. So this man is a certified New York legend. He has produced with everyone, or for everyone. I'm talking Pete Rock, CL Smooth, Nas, Busta Rhymes, Master Ace, Big Daddy Kane, Tribe Called Quest, Mobb Deep, Akinyele. I can't never pronounce that man's name.
Akinyele,
yeah, I can never pronounce that man's name, but he is one of those unsung producers that people don't show enough love to. He does have his own recordings. He actually started recording his solo album in '96, but it was shelved until 2009. What happened? Like, the album date kept getting pushed back until they finally shelved it. There was a bootleg that was released in 2002, but all in all, he has 5 solo rap albums, and then he has 3 albums of beats, like just his beats. And the latest one actually came out, volume 3 came out at the top of the year. So he's still on the scene. He's still working. He's still doing his thing. He's probably produced for one of your favorite artists. For anybody listening, you just gotta like really get into, go back and listen to the Main Source. Their first album is my favorite still. That's the one he was on. But also like get into his solo music, because I think he's amazing.
Definitely. The thing about Looking at the Front Door, it's one of those songs that, like, being in LA, I remember hearing it back in the '90s, but it was like before I was really deep into rap, so I didn't really pay as much attention to it. But I remember being at rest in peace to Ricky Harris, the comedian. I was at his house about 9 years ago, and we were recording some drops from my mixtape, my mix called The Timeline. And after we finished it, he had on one of those TV stations where it's like no videos, but they just show like they're just playing hip hop songs. One of those direct TV stations. So
what are you talking about?
Yeah, he played direct. DirecTV has those hip hop and R&B stations, and I remember it came on. He got hyped, and I was just like, I heard it before. He was like, "No, you gotta know about Main Source, man. Looking at the Front Door, man. This song back in '91. This was my jam." He started getting hype about it. And I was like, "Oh, this is kind of banging though." And I realized it's the same bass line that they used on what was it, that Lisa Code Jam? They used that same bass line too. It's same year.
It's one of those songs that is so like one of those like first like serious like reflective hip hop songs, and it's not like a song that you can party to, even though I know some people who have partied to it, but it's like he's talking some real shit actually.
He really is.
Professor P, he called it one of the most emotional songs that he's ever recorded. He was like really young. I think he was only 18 when the album dropped, so he's been doing his thing forever. Like, he's been in the business. But that song it came on shuffle, and I was like, why does no one talk about Professor? Like, nobody. I never hear his name mentioned. I rarely hear Main Source mentioned, but I especially don't hear his name mentioned.
I feel like even his work with Nas, and Nas actually had a show at the LA Philharmonic a couple of days ago, and it's like, so it's where he made those legendary songs for him. And I feel like I hear his name a lot when it's those boom bap Monday type of vibes, like a lot of hip hop, the truly hip hop type producers, and not producers, but DJs and fans love him, but you don't really hear him outside that bubble. Like you'll hear of Premier and them way more than him.
And I think he's in the same vein as like a Premier or a Pete Rock. Like we wouldn't know who Nas was if it wasn't like Nas's first appearance was on Main Source's album. So, and
I think at the barbecue,
I think he produced 4 songs from Illmatic, like the most of anybody else. So this man is like a hip hop legend, and he is like produced for some of the most legendary names, but his name isn't spoken enough. We got to show him some respect.
Yeah, definitely. I think, who was it? Maybe a few weeks ago when he had his birthday, they actually had somebody had a tribute for him on Twitch, so it was dope seeing that.
Oh, that's
They
dope.
played nothing but music that he made, so it was dope to see that. Yeah.
Yeah, we
It might have
need
been
more
like
parties like that.
it might have been Green Lantern. It might have been Green Lantern, which would make sense because of the whole Nas connection.
It probably was. I wish I would have known about it because I definitely would have tuned in because his music he makes amazing music, not just as a rapper, but especially as a producer.
The producer. Yeah, he had both sides covered. So yeah, salute to Large Professor for sure. And for my pick, similar, but I would say a different era, the following era, a producer who came, a similar story in a sense to me. I'm gonna go with Hi-Tek. So Hi-Tek is a producer who came from Cincinnati, Ohio. He got his start really around like 96. He had a kind of a local project in Ohio, a group called Mood, and they had a song called Hustle on the Side, which was one of those like you probably had to be from Ohio to know it, especially back then, because it wasn't really on radio nationwide from what I know. But listen to that album. He actually had some dope tracks back then, and he's one of those producers that before he found his own style, you could tell that he was influenced by the Large Professor types, but he definitely had a lot of flavor in his music. He had that kind of Large Professor, even Q-Tip influence at that point, I would say. But when he really broke through, I would say even before Reflection Eternal with Talib, really just producing on that Black Star album, the Most Def and Talib quality.
Underrated.
Definition and Redefinition. I remember watching that because that's probably the year I watched Rap City the most, back in '98. I just remember how that video showed Definition, and then right when the song's about to end, you hear Redefinition. And it's like, back then I used to like Definition way more, but I probably like Redefinition a little bit more now. Just the way that beat comes in. Like it goes either way, but I feel like
it goes either way. But I can see you liking Redefinition a little more.
Yeah, I feel like at the same time, it's kind of like a brother or sister song. You gotta have both. You gotta play both of them back to back. Like the way it comes in is just the perfect combination. But with Hi-Tek, he after that he had the Reflection Eternal with Talib, and to me, I would say one of his best beats is still the Blast. The Blast is still one of just the most cold, smooth hip hop grooves, and he had his own style at this point. And one thing that I always look back and think about is that in that era, he had that kind of soulful, the East Coast-ish sound that had a little bit of a West Coast vibe to it, a little bit similar to Dilla. Him and Dilla both came from the Midwest. He was Ohio, Dilla was from Detroit, and I would even say like folks forget that Hi-Tek was way bigger than Dilla at that point.
Yeah, way bigger
as far as just by name, like because Hi-Tek had all these commercial songs that were getting played. Of course, he was with Raucus, so he was on sound bombing type albums. But then when he put out his solo, the High Technology. When he dropped that track with Janelle, that Round and Round, like
classic, still
that song, like, still
you can put it on right now, and I'm going crazy.
Yeah, like that song still bangs to this day. And he had the remix, of course, with Method Man on there as well. But just hearing that, like, it's crazy how even when I think about a lot of what we kind of attribute to that Dilla, which was still a JD sound, I would say that kind of like slightly offbeat type of hi-hat type of cadence that was big in that era, and that. At that point, I would say Hi-Tek probably was the one who kind of dominated with that sound, especially commercially. It's where a lot of us had to really kind of dig in. Yeah, commercially, I would say like Dilla was definitely right there with him, and I'm not sure if they even had any. Did they have any songs together? I'm trying to think if they had any work that was together. I feel like Hi-Tek
honestly don't think they had anything together. And I could be wrong, but I don't remember any type of collabo unless they were like silently producing or whatever. I don't remember. Nothing comes to mind.
That's what I'm thinking about too, because they did have a similar type of sound, and some of the similar artists working with artists like Common as well. So they had some of those similar parallels. And with Hi-Tek, his most recent track, I would say that got love was that "Come Down" for Anderson .Paak. He actually produced that about 6 years ago. So he still has been active. He still has put out albums since that era. But I would say his peak was definitely in that 2001 era when he dropped that High Technology, and he had 3 versions of that album. He had the third one was back in 2007, but he had some credits too. He worked with everybody from Big L to Beanie to he did a couple songs for 50. He did like The Best Friend and the Rider music, and he did one of my favorite songs from him was actually, of course, being LA is the East Siders. He did a song for the East Siders called "Cool" back in 2001. You gotta play that one as soon as we get off.
I never heard that one. Okay,
it's such a vibe. Like it's a Hi-Tek beat with that little kind of offbeat hi-hat, but he had Cocaine and Nate Dogg and Butch Cassidy and Goldie Lowe just vibing on it. Like it's just such a smooth track. Like everybody out here was riding to that. Like it wasn't even a club track. It was just something you ride to. But like he had some He did have some bangers, and I think now that I think about it, he did have a couple songs with Dilla that might have been released after Dilla died. I'm thinking about that right now. So
Okay, that makes
yeah,
sense because
yeah,
after Dilla died, there were a lot of
yeah.
people who would either praising him or releasing things that
Hmm.
they had worked on with him or he had worked on for them.
Yeah,
But I don't remember any at the time,
at the
especially like
time,
late
yeah.
'90s and early 2000s. I don't remember any like word of any collaboration.
Yeah, yeah. So it's one of those things that happened after Dilla passed, but definitely wish I could have seen that collaboration happen. But he definitely had a lot of dope tracks, and he still is making it to this day. So salute to Hi-Tek for sure.
Yeah, definitely salute. I mean, anytime you get people like Large Professor, people like Hi-Tek who what 30 plus years, can still be on top of their game and still doing their thing and working with the biggest names. They're not, a lot of people consider them to be underground in a way, but they're not really
Yeah,
underground because they're working with all the A-listers. They're actually working with,
it's true.
the
Yeah,
people who are technically the better lyricists. That's who they're working with. And I
cream
think,
of the crop. Yeah,
yeah, that's what they go for. And I think a lot of people just they're not tuned in enough to appreciate it. And I think I want to get us to the place where people are appreciating that type of music.
yeah, for sure, for sure. So salute to both of those legendary producers right there. So moving along, we have the fast forward segment. We like to highlight some artists who are making some waves in the game right now that we think have potential to, make some noise out there. So EB, for this episode, who would you like to pick?
I'm going across the pond again. A
Uh-oh.
band out of
You
I
love
can't say
traveling.
I can't stay
Hey,
out of it. I can't stay away. It's a
yeah,
band from Manchester, England,
England.
who have this special blend of jazz, R&B, gospel, funk, and soul. They actually describe their sound as limitless, and they're called Secret
Hmm.
Night Gang. That is the name of the band. Secret Night
Secret Night
Gang.
Gang.
That is
Okay.
their name. The
Okay.
frontmen for the band are Kamani Anderson, who is the vocalist, and Colum Cano, tongue twister, who is the
Hmm.
saxophonist. But they got together. They started as a songwriting duo, just those two, and eventually they
Hmm.
added a drummer, a bassist, a guitarist, a producer. They just released their self-titled album last year, Secret Night Gang, and
Okay.
it's just coming out of the pandemic, it's really a reflection of that. And it's almost like a tribute to their favorite musician. So if you listen into it, you will hear influences from like Chic and Nile Rodgers, Quincy Jones, Stevie Wonder, Earth, Wind and Fire. And they're all
Hmm.
beautifully written songs with this amazing live instrumentation is my favorite part. And I really think Kamani Anderson is a talented vocalist. So sometimes they get what do they call like a standout member of the group who might
Yeah.
work and do other things, and I really want him to do that. I don't want him to leave the group, but I would love
Yeah.
to hear him being produced by somebody else because I think he's a decent vocalist. But Secret Night
Hmm.
Gang, that is the name of the band. Album was out last year. I want everybody to check them out.
Secret Night Gang. So I'm assuming just because they're from Europe, I already know they have some soul to them. I know they have some musicianship to them. I know that
Yeah,
they have the songs are not just basic loops. They have some bridges and some instrumentation.
like these are like
Hmm.
Quincy Jones, Stevie Wonder. These are classically written songs. The songs have
Wow.
structure. They're not just chorus and stupid ass lyrics. Like the song,
Yeah.
it's not made for TikTok. It's an
Mm.
their actual composition. So everybody got to check them out.
Definitely. So I'm definitely tuned in. As soon as you said they from across the pond, I said, all right, you already know what that means. So all
They
right, we gotta.
appreciate it more. I don't know
They
what
really
it
do.
is. They do.
They really do. Because I mean, we asked Estelle about that when we had her on, and it's the
Yeah,
same thing. It feels like they just have a different ear for it. So I'm definitely that's one of my plans this year is to get over to London.
yeah.
Even if I don't have a gig, like if I could stop there coming from somewhere else or something, because
Yeah,
I just
I
want to
want
see
to
what's
check out
happening.
the music scene. I want to check out like the R&B, yes, of course, but I want to check out the garage. I want to check out the reggae over there. I want to check out like the old school record shops. Like
Yeah,
they have a culture that's steeped in music history, and I'd love to check it out, especially Black music history and
yeah.
the sound of Blackness, the sound of Black UK people, sound of Africa, the sound of Black Americans. They got it.
They really do. So salute to them for what they got going over there. I respect it all day. So
Yeah.
for this one, I'm gonna take it. I'm gonna keep it right here home. I'm gonna go to Watts real quick. My pick for this episode is Kenyon Dixon, aka Kenny Got Soul, aka R&B Kenny. You know, all whatever you want to call him. So Kenyon Dixon has been making waves for a while. He's initially, a lot of folks might have known him for his work with Tyrese, whether it was background singing or writing for, even with TGT project. What happened with that? The Tank, Genuine Tyrese project. Yeah. Man. Rest in peace to that whole group, to that whole collective.
The potential to be great, man.
Yeah, seriously. But from there, he did work. He had some of his own projects back around 2014. He had, I think, his first EP that was called 24. And even going back to his older projects, you can tell that he had a different type of sound and appreciation. And he was a type that just kind of held on to his guts. Like he didn't say, let me just try to find what's trendy and hop on something that's wavy and blow up with that. Like he just always made true, pure soul music. So it's beautiful to see that 8 years after he made that EP, his first EP, I should say, he's starting to get a lot more love. So he's always worked closely with Alex Isley. We know Alex Isley came from the Isley clan, of course. And he's done a lot of background work with everybody from Kurt to Usher, Jill Scott, Pharrell, even Nick Jonas, Timberlake, So he has a lot of names for who he's worked with, but the last few years, he's really started to get way more recognition. He's been on some soul ciphers on I want to say it was the Soul Train Awards. He was on the Soul Cypher for that. He's been on the Terrell Grice show, of course. And it's funny seeing him on Terrell because Terrell is so animated and hype. And Kenyon is just so Watts, so just laid back and chill. But he was chill, but you can tell he still enjoyed being on there. So It's still just dope to see that contrast, the yin and yang type personalities. But one thing about him, he has a distinct style. He just has that real smooth, soulful voice where it kind of reminds me of I'm not going to say it's like how Jaheim was when Jaheim first came out, but he does kind of have a grown-up adult presence to his music. So even hearing his singles, I would say his main single is probably that Expectations with Alex Isley. And it has that kind of modern future soul sound to it, that K Tronada Solation vibe to it. But it is a dope summertime type of anthem. And he just floats on there. It's one of those things where he never forces his sound to fit into any box. And he actually got a Grammy nomination. He was nominated for his performance on Bringing Home to Me. So he's gotten some acclaim from the Grammys as well. And just hearing him live, he's one of those artists too where he sounds great on the record and sounds great in person too. I've never heard it where he missed a note in person. He hops on the stage. I've done some shows with him, and even during the warm-up, he just walks out, one sip of water, and just sings it where it's all right, he's a natural at it. So I think he has a lot of potential to really take over. I feel like, as we've said, the women have been killing the R&B game the last few years, and the men got to catch up. So I would say when it comes to these men, these male R&B singers, he's definitely top 5 right now for me when it comes to this whole new breed of them. So I got a lot of faith in what he's doing.
I mean, I'm not saying that he sounds exactly like Jaheim, and I know that's not what you were saying, but I get the comparisons because I think he's a crooner as well. And I think he has one of those voices that is timeless. He has a classic voice. I love when he started teasing his album that he was like, the world needed more R&B, which is true. Yeah. It's real. So true. The world does need more R&B. And I think that let me know that he was committed to bringing a true R&B project and not necessarily a project that was a mix of other genres. I'm not saying you won't hear the influence because he's definitely has that influence, but he really wants to release a solid project. And that's actually one of my highly anticipated releases from this year, or at least from this month, is hearing what he's given us, because man, I know I was looking at the track list and he has a song called Marvin Gaye. And when you open up an album with a song called Marvin Gaye, and I think there's one on there, and I'm not sure it's ISLY. And in my mind, I was like, oh, I just read Isley immediately. Yeah, I just read Isley. I was is he paying tribute to Marvin and then the Isley brothers? I don't know. But I was curious. I wanted to hear a lot more about it.
Yeah, so he, as of the release of this episode, his album dropped May 5th called Closer. So he does have a new project. The last one he had last year was Expectations. So
yeah,
definitely putting my stock in the Kenyon Dixon. So y'all got to check him out for sure. So from this point, we're going to have a quick break. We have an intermission, and we'll be back when we get back, we have a special guest who I've known for a while, as I've said, known him since birth, I would say. And then we're gonna be ending off with our infamous beat match. We're gonna see what sides you're gonna ride. We're gonna see if EB is gonna come back and give you some fire. We'll see about it. But either way, we'll be right back for you. All right, so we are back. This is Behind the Wheels. So today we have a special guest who, as I've been saying, I've known since birth, I would say. He is my actual cousin. So for this episode, I would say that, it's so many things that we can talk about. I'm like, how can we keep it concise is the main issue, because it's so many things that we can discuss, of course. But we have legendary hip hop artist Murs, Murs. Murs is in the building. He's hailing from Los Angeles, California, just like me. He's been doing this thing, rapping since I've known you. I mean, going back to at least 93, I feel like you're rapping back then, right?
Yeah. Way back in the 90s, in the 1900s, as my son says.
1900s. Yeah. All the kids say that now. Yeah, I'm like, y'all love whippersnappers. Look, yeah, it's like they make us feel like we ancient out here now. So with you, I'll jump in with this. So I'm gonna apologize for like the third time for snitching on you back in '93. For anybody who's listening, basically, he was a huge Wu-Tang fan. So back in '93, I was definitely getting into hip hop at the time. I really started getting into rap. I would say '93, and I was a kid who was always kind of like the fake good kid. I wasn't really that good, but I tried to act good. So I remember he had the Wu-Tang. Wu-Tang actually autographed like the album. Was it Raekwon or who actually signed it for you?
Raekwon, yeah.
Raekwon, yeah. So I remember he met Raekwon. He was hyping. Raekwon wrote whatever he wrote on the album when he signed it. He cussed like, go out there and kick some ass or something. And I told your mom, I was like, hey, he had some cussing on his wall. And then your mom fake made you take it down just until I left, I'm sure. So
no, she was for real, man. She's for real, man. Yeah, she won't play that, man.
Yeah.
But I still have that at my house to this day.
That's wild to know, because you were like really the first person I knew back then to be like a Wu-Tang fan, because being in LA at that time, like 93, that's when LA was really taking over, I feel like. We had so much, we had everything from the Domino to Doggy Style that just dropped to Cube was still doing this thing, the Far Side passing me by. We had so much, but it was like for you to be a straight LA city kid, but it felt like even back then you kind of gravitated toward the East Coast sound a lot as far as what you were into. Like how did that even happen with you?
Oh man, I got tired of listening to Genocide. It's funny because I thought that Wu-Tang was conscious, but Wu-Tang is talking about drugs and killing.
Yeah, I was about to say that.
But it was just I got made fun of a lot because I watched 90210. I never watched Martin. I couldn't stand Living Single. Like,
wow.
LA black people ruined everything black for me in such a way where I wanted any escape from anything that was black in LA. Because I dealt with Crips and Bloods every day, motherfuckers calling me gay because I like to read. Like, literally, you read? Nigga, that's gay. I'm like, huh? I'm like, what do you mean, bro? And then, like me always constantly having a fight. So to me, anything outside of, and like I was really pro West Coast. Like when Dale dropped, I was super into that. Because he was talking about my experience and getting made fun of for riding a bus. And like he was Cube's cousin, but he wasn't a gangster. He was from Oakland. He was very pro-black, but he wasn't ignorant and talking about killing. So like I was like Public Enemy, X-Clan, where do we go? And I was like, oh, I can't really get with this. I love Niggas for Life is one of the most underrated albums of all time.
Yeah, that NWA. Yeah.
I just felt like West Coast rap got lazy. Like Dre ditched Ren, so there was no more lyricism. DOC lost his voice, so there was no more lyricism. And then I got into Freestyle Fellowship. I was very West Coast if it was lyrical. Yeah. I was very into the Far Side. I was very into the Alcoholics.
The licks, the licks.
I just wasn't into promoting the death. And at least with East Coast rap, I understand people stick up kids. You're murdering for money. I understand drugs because you're trying to elevate your financial status. I didn't understand gangbanging. I understood it, but I just couldn't understand promoting it. Because Like, we got the best weed and the best women, and then you want to rap about shooting up the club? I'm like, and not like it means now. Like, it's funny how shooting up the club means
how slang changed up.
Like really shooting up the club. Like,
but for literally, bro,
yeah.
Like, because you are either a closeted homosexual or angry at your dad, or all the various reasons black men in a room full of women want to look at another man. I never understood that. But then I was always the one that was called gay. And I was like, I don't understand. You want to hang out with a bunch of dudes all day and fight a whole other bunch of dudes over a street that neither one of y'all own. And I just want to make music and like write poetry to girls. But I'm gay. I get it. Yeah, so it was just all that stuff made me like, and when Deep Cover dropped, when Creep with Me crawled through the hood, man, I was like, yo, this
Snoop Eastwood,
and nobody was checking for him. I had the Chronic the day it dropped, and I was already smoking weed. I was a weirdo. I was smoking weed. Another thing too is like I hung out with like real Crips because back then nobody smoked. Before Doggy Style,
that's wild,
the Chronic, when the Chronic dropped, kids in high school didn't know what Chronic was. They want I used to get told on by the same kids. They were like, Nicholas is high on drugs, and and the only people that smoked weed were the punk rock kids and Bloods and Crips that were like gang, real like had been to the pen. So that was my friends, like the juvenile delinquents, and we would all smoke weed. So when the Chronic dropped, I understood it.
They was talking about,
and so I was into that. But then when it got commercial, these people, the kids, they didn't know Dre from NWA. It was like Dre was a new person to them. Like West Coast kids, a lot of West Coast kids my age and older and younger, their history of Dre doesn't go back to the Mix Show and K-Day. They don't remember that.
Wow.
Their Dre is, because Dre wasn't a star in NWA unless you were a music head.
He was a producer. Yeah,
he was a producer, and unless you were a music head thinking about beats, you weren't thinking about Dre. And producers weren't really stars yet. Pete Rock was kind of, and Premier Pete Rock really was the first person to make producers stars because he did a remix to "We Got the Jazz" for Tribe Called Quest. He did "They Reminisce Over You." He put his name first on Pete Rock and CL Smooth. Like he had a signature, the horns. Like people weren't checking for producers. Then
I didn't think about that. Yeah,
Dre switched to Eric Sermon. He was kind of there. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But this was the change. So when the Chronic dropped, I was all over it. And then when I saw to me, those are the nerds. Like the mainstream kids get on it. Like me and the OG homies was on it. And then I was like, oh, y'all want to smoke weed now? And all of a sudden it became, hey, Nick, where can I get some weed? And and I was like, I want nothing to do with this fad. So then I still haven't heard Doggy Style from front to back.
What?
Yeah, never.
How?
We bought it the day it came out, and I got so high that I don't remember it. And then after that, I couldn't stand to see all these kids all of a sudden be in the weed and all of a sudden be Crips. I'm like, I know the real Crips. Like, those are my homies because they don't bother me. They're not insecure. They're not picking on the nerd dude.
Yeah.
But I was like, all these fashion Crips and fake fashion weed smokers.
So it wasn't necessarily like the West Coast sound, like musically, like instrumental wise. It was just the lyrical content of the East Coast kind of pulled you in.
Yeah, like it was the lyric, and I like the sound of the East Coast. I love the production on the West Coast, and I love the production of the East Coast. I think Dre was, but in the end, Dre kind of took the funk sound from Eric Sermon. You know what I'm saying? Dre wasn't revolutionary with that. And then when you get behind it, like Warren G was behind a lot of that.
Daz,
yeah. So, but Dre has the ear, man. Like George Clinton has the ear, like Quincy has the ear, like Puffy has the ear.
Yep.
So, and he has a vision.
Yeah.
And that vision went from I don't smoke weed or cess on Express Yourself to all smoke weed every day. Within 3 years, his life changed. You know? And
it is real. It is real.
And he was in tune with the youth. Like, people, Dre and Snoop aren't the same age. By far.
They weren't at all.
But these young niggas came to his mansion with some blue rags and some dirt weed, and shit changed his life.
Some dirt weed.
Because then he had the money to upgrade. I'm sure Snoop and him wasn't smoking good weed, but they got Dre in the weed. Dre was like, I could afford this.
We need the good shit. Yeah, we need
and
the
then
good.
I feel like being a weirdo, I feel like might have even elevated Snoop's persona. Like, you take Snoop on Stress and you take Snoop on Chronic, and you're gonna get a whole different
beast.
I
don't smoke, so I always hear about these different types of strains from music and from weed heads, but I never even thought about breaking it down at that level. So it's
you better not, because Ron Turner will fuck you up, bro.
To everybody listening, he talking about Papa Artistic. Even today, but here's the funny thing: how things has changed. Because back in the '90s, anything marijuana was just the most illegal thing ever. But then a couple years ago, maybe 9 years ago, my dad was using some type of cannabis oil to help out his like back problem.
He wasn't. No, he wasn't.
Yeah,
no, he wasn't.
He was.
Papa Artistic about to have a backiotomy, and
I'm like, where did this come from? Like, it's a whole new person. So that's still wild about Doggy Style. So my thing that got kind of crazy was, okay, so I knew you were doing everything back in the 90s, obviously, and hearing your story about how you were not as much into the hip hop, I mean, the West Coast hip hop, but you still were a fan of it as a whole, but just not as much as you were a lot of East Coast. But I remember back in 2008, I got back from FAMU, and now you were working with Snoop and had songs with him and worked in the same camp. And that was wild to me, because it was where, like, of course, like, me and your brother and everybody else grew up as huge Snoop fans and obviously huge fans of you, but y'all were like, we like y'all for totally different reasons. But it was crazy seeing how Snoop had evolved at that point, where he was no longer just the super overly cripped out, overly smoked out rapper. And then even with you, it was like, even though you still had your underground basis, you're still talking about real life. It was like you started working with Terrence Martin as well, and it was where you were making the melodic music that was different. And I would say, how did things feel changing? And even with that, before we even get deep into that, I remember 2007 when you made Dreadlocks, and I remember how it was controversial in a way that it wouldn't be today. But back in that era, I remember, of course, some of your fans were like, why is he trying to make a hyphy song? He's trying to jump on the trend. But on the flip side, the lyrics were the exact same lyrics you always use. You were talking about dreadlocks from a historical perspective, but it was a hyphy beat to it. So it was like, I remember playing it for my homies from the Bay. They were hype about it. They was like, hey, who is this song, Murs? Like, that's your cousin? That song bangs. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think it was me getting away from LA and going to Oakland, and then feeling like, like at my core, I'm still a kid from LA. And I tell you, and as we talk, I want to make a disclaimer for anyone. If I say cuz, this is my cousin, but also he's my cousin, so he knows how I talk. And, I grew up in a Crip neighborhood all my life, whether it's West LA or Linwood. Like, it's always been part of my natural way of speaking when I'm not in public. I could turn it off and on so I don't offend anyone. Just like, like black people, we got 2-3 different personalities. You got your work personality, you got your home personality.
Code switching,
code switching
all day.
So with my aunties and my uncles and him, but with my cousins, I'm gonna say cuz, and with my homies in my neighborhood, I'm gonna say cuz.
All day.
So when I see your face, I'm not in my podcast persona. I'm in my
you ain't gotta be.
My guard is down
right now. Yeah.
But yeah, when I got to LA, when I got to the Bay, I was like, I thought everything was California, and they was like blood.
Oh yeah.
And I remember having one of my homies. I was staying with him. He's from my neighborhood, so I said, come outside real quick. I said, hey cuz, I was like, you gonna let these niggas blood us? Oh, it was some girls. I was like, you gonna let these bitches blood us? I was like, I'm not saying cuz, why they pressing us? Like, I was like, I can't take too much. I believe, bro. And he was like, he just started laughing. He's like, they mean like family, food. And I was like,
that's the culture. That's the culture.
Like, and so being that, it made me stick to my LA roots. And like, I was in the East Coast hip hop for maybe 3 years, but I was raised with, Bloods and Crips, and you know what I mean? And I like Snoop's second album. I never heard Doggy Style, but I bought everything the day it came out. I had Dog Food. I had all that. I just didn't put it in rotation. But when Snoop got with Uncle Charlie, I felt that was a new sound. When Snoop got away from Dre, he was more Snoop to me. Yeah. He had Trey D on the track. Like, and Trey D reminds me of the dudes I used to smoke with. Like, cuz dudes for the niggas in the hood, the dub, what up? He's naming real streets, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I'm like, shit. And that's like, I still went with Nate on Crenshaw every weekend. That's my little brother. So I was hearing, like, I love J.O. Felony. I love E40. I love just the more authentic, not the mainstream West Coast. Like,
I get that. Yeah.
When Chronic 2001 dropped, I felt like no one here was really listening to that. We were listening to Corrupt.
Look, I was trying to tell somebody on Twitter that they're not trying to listen to it. And I'm going to say, like, I have some homies who are not black. They still the homies. But I was saying it. I was saying that in LA in 99, we liked 2001. We loved it. We loved Let's Get High and all that. But a lot of LA natives like Corrupt, Streets is a Mother even more, because that was a more true LA album. But they're trying to tell me, and one dude who's not black, who not even from LA was like, nah, I was out here. That's not true. I was with I don't care what celebrities you was with. No, if you were really in LA, if you were really driving down Crenshaw and Exposition, like you heard more Corrupt.
Girls
the
on
motorcycles,
pause.
Like in Girls on Pause when that drop. Yeah.
Like now you can't name a club banger really off of 2001.
Yeah, only Let's Get High. Aside from Let's Get High, you didn't really hear nothing. You ain't hear Forgot About Dre at the club.
I guess you know what? No, what's the Explosive was hit. But who was on that?
Yeah.
The voice of the LA streets.
Yeah.
Corrupt at the time.
Good point.
You know what I'm saying? Only thing Corrupt kept Corrupt from going was he did Calling Out Names.
Woo.
And that's what stopped him.
EB, have you heard that before?
I have not.
So Calling Out Names.
Calling Out Names.
So you remember so you probably heard about how Corrupt was dating Foxy Brown and how DMX basically had his thing with her. So calling out names is, I almost want you to hear it before I explain it.
Yeah, you should. We can't. It's like okay, like it's a beat. If Hit 'Em Up,
overly West Coast beat.
Yeah,
overly.
If Hit 'Em Up is like a mainstream horror flick, Calling Out Names is a B movie. Like it's not. It doesn't have all the bells and whistles.
Yeah. It's like an unfiltered. And the thing about Calling Out Names, I'll say it for everybody who's tuned in. Like, I'm sure most of my listeners have probably heard it, but if you haven't, you know about the beef. You know that Corrupt was about to diss him. So you see it. It's probably that Real Player era when Real Player was like, before we had YouTube and Tidal, you would hear music on Real Player. You remember that? It was an app called Real Player. So
yes.
I think everybody who heard it, I think all of us had the same reaction that we probably forget about, because the way he sets it up, because he's about to diss DMX, but with that, it's like we still aren't that far from Hit 'Em Up. So we still kind of in the East Coast, West Coast.
We're not far from the death of two of the biggest rappers.
Yeah. So we on edge thinking it still can go anyway, even though we had Thicker Than Water with Mac 10 and Fat Joe getting together. We had a lot of East Coast, West Coast collabs at the time, but we still felt like at any moment it might separate. So the first time I heard the song, he's talking. He said, "I love New York, but the niggas that represent y'all ain't shit in New York. They acting like a bitch, New York." I'm already like, okay, all right, what's about to happen? And he said, "Buckshot, Noriega, Jigga." Everybody's heart stopped. Then he said, "Cool. Cannabis, Wu-Tang, my niggas. Cool." And it's like, I'm relieved now. I thought he was about to diss all of them. The way he set it up was to make you think he was going to diss all of them, but he said, "Cool with them." But then he said, Def Squad, Def Jam, but fuck Ja Rule. So basically, he disses Ja Rule. He said he rocks with the Locks and all them, but he dissing DMX, dissing Foxy, dissing
Irv
Ja
Gotti.
Rule. Irv Gotti, yeah. Irv
Try
Gotti.
to sign Daz, nigga.
Daz sign you. Yeah.
Man,
so it's like
he started the whole song with niggas with hepatitis. I'm like, what the fuck? I mean,
wait, hold on. So this was a diss track for DMX, or was this just like everybody? Like
no, just DMX, Irv Gotti, and Ja Rule, but mostly DMX. Which is it was from a street perspective. Allegedly, it's Rough Riders and Rolling 60s, and I was like, fuck. Niggas just died, and I feel like more niggas is about to die because these are two street institutions that are extremely reputable.
Yeah.
That it was. I haven't felt that way until I heard what is the Pusha T diss track to Lil Wayne? Exodus 25, whatever. 7.
Oh yeah.
The niggas ain't dying for you. I was like, that scared me. I was like,
same
okay,
kind of thing. Yeah.
These are Cash Money.
You're talking street. Yeah.
It's not
the street.
When somebody that's like Corrupt is capable of being very lyrical. Tupac wasn't capable of the lyrical ferocity that Biggie was. So he had to go like, all he could say was, "I fucked your wife, you fat motherfucker." And we're like, whoa, you know?
That's true.
But
that's true.
To me, for Corrupt to come in at that level, not on he didn't lyrically try to destroy DMX. He came personal. Niggas with hepatitis. Like, whoa, bro. Shit, I didn't need to know. I don't even know if it's true. Rest in peace. You know what I'm saying? But I'm like, why? Why?
Yeah.
Why are we back to here? Like, why
come out the gate? You come out the gate with that. Yeah. So I feel like that's one of those moments that because there was no social media, that's crazy that like EB never heard it, but I'm not really shocked because I mean There was
Well,
no social media.
I mean, the
so
rumor is that
yeah.
Leon Cohen made sure you didn't hear it.
And
When
that I
Corrupt dropped
believe.
that, he said, if you want, he told radio, if you want the next Foxy Brown, the next DMX, the next Jay-Z record, you better not touch this Corrupt record.
Ooh,
that was the rumor.
Okay.
And I think, it's all's fair in love and war. Like, but I think that's what stopped that record. But on the West Coast, like on that most hitting track off of 2001 was Explosive, because we were all listening to Corrupt. If you're in a Cameo Cleaners parking lot on a Sunday, this is what's playing. You know what I'm saying? If you going to Venice Beach on a Sunday, this is what's playing. If you at Rally Burger, this is what is playing, And I always stayed in touch with that because, my brother, I have no choice, Yeah. And that's
Nate
where
was all about that,
So I'm like Nate, I never stopped liking West Coast rap. I just never fuck with mainstream West Coast rap.
And there's a distinction between the mainstream and what the culture is really hitting on, like the underground scene. They're two total different things. The mainstream, they tend to gravitate towards what will sell, and what sells is bullshit most of the time. Not all the time. I'm not trying to diss nobody, but most of the time. So I can definitely see why you would gravitate away from the mainstream West Coast, because it's the same on the East Coast. Like a lot of people kind of distance themselves from that mainstream. Once you get commercially famous, or once you hit that commercial peak, you lose fans, and it's because you're not really rocking with your core anymore. Maybe that's what your experience was like. You got tired of hearing the shit. Like they wasn't rocking with the core of what you, as somebody who was from LA, thought LA was.
Yeah, I didn't think that was what, and at that point it's like rightfully so. Like we didn't have space for black pop artists. But at that point, I feel like Dre hadn't been in the hood in a long time. Why should he be? I'm not.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Yeah. I'm living off of Pico and La Brea, Pico and Hauser. I'm going down to Crenshaw. I'm eating at Earl's. Like I'm going to the slots and swap meet still. Like I'm in and out of these places, not for cred or anything, but it's just my habitat. And so the Chronic 2001 didn't feel like that. It didn't feel like LA. It felt like a version of what, the Dre is I hate using the term king because it's European. Dre is a chief. You know what I'm saying? He's not in the trenches. I was in the trenches, and that was what the chief is making doesn't usually resonate in the trenches. You know what I mean?
Right.
And I think Snoop was his go-between. You know what I mean? But at that, like when you look, even the first single off 2001, it was written by Jay-Z.
Yeah.
It was,
Keys by Scott Storch.
Yes, Scott Storch did the most recognized. That has nothing to do with me. That has nothing to do with anything. So, and it's okay. He was a West Coast pop star. People need to see Dre more like Puffy and will.i.am than like Snoop, or at the time like Jelly Roll was smashing, Meech Wells was smashing, like
Battle Cat, Battle Cat was
like these
all
are people,
in that era. Yeah,
and you say their names and you kind of know where they're from. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Jelly Roll Studios off Adams and La Brea. You know what I'm saying? Meech got all kind of family members that I know from street shit. His baby mama is from blah blah blah. Like I was connected to. They were connected to what was going on. Dre wasn't, and that's not a diss to Dre. So for me, but if you want the mainstream to know if you're gonna birth the next rap god, which is Eminem, and like that stamped Eminem. Eminem was on, but that stamped him. That gave him the bridge to the black community. Still didn't give him a club banger, which he has none of. But
he never will. He never will.
Yeah,
he never will.
I'm hoping for him, man, because I think that's the
He's
one
still
thing.
Hoping?
That's the one thing that keeps him out of the GOAT category. But I think he needs to get with like Mumford and Sons or something, because that's the only way he's gonna. Cause I always tell a true generational slap is something that could be played at a wedding.
It's real.
Like,
it's real.
Ain't no fun. Come on, your auntie's still dancing at the reception. You know what I'm saying? There's many Jay-Z songs that could go that way. There's many. But
Biggie, it's true.
Yeah,
Emmett's probably the only one who don't have it.
Only one in that echelon that doesn't. And I'm hoping that before it's all said and done, that maybe Detox will get him one. You know what I'm saying? I think Eminem and Kendrick somewhere. Because I think Kendrick could use another one, but Kendrick's not even near done, so I know he got a couple.
Yeah, he got a couple sitting there.
But I always stuck with the West Coast. I was just needing a bridge, and Terrace Martin was that bridge. Terrace Martin and me are like twins, except for he went this way. So when my manager was somebody I grew up with named Ted Chung, and he managed Snoop. But he didn't manage Snoop yet. He was just working with Snoop. when I got my deal with Warner Brothers, the first time I needed a manager in my life. So I called Ted. Yeah. I said, Ted, you know this business. We've been friends since high school. He was in the underground rap. I said, Ted, can you manage me? And him and Russell Rideau.
Russell, of course.
So Double R, who was managing, I think Tyrese at the time and some other thing, they teamed up to represent me at Warner Brothers. And they also were working with a kid named Terrace Martin, who had just done the first, I think, Doggy Style compilation, Doghouse Records compilation.
Doghouse. He was on 2 and 3 album in 04 too. He did the joystick on there, and
So he was coming up, but he was to underground rap what I was. He was to gangster rap what I was to underground rap. He was the youngest dude in all those rooms. I was the youngest dude going to The Good Life and Project Blowed and all these things, and he was respected in that lane as an artist, you know, and I was respected in my lane. But the connection was Ted and Russ, because he worked with them, and I think they're kind of managing him. But our other connections, I'm sitting in I never seen Terrace Martin, I knew his name, and he go, "Hey, nigga, you live in Mansfield Hood, huh?" And I was like, "Huh?"
Wait.
My baby mama lived next door to you. I was like, such and such. He's like, yeah. And so then from then on, Terrace, he's like, niggas think that you're weird. He's like, but I know, I've seen you outside with the niggas that's really, I know you really outside. So he's like, when I got my budget, we gave Terrace a bunch of money. He started bringing in Marlon, and he started bringing in, you know, all these people. And he's like, and then first thing he would say, like, "Hey, this nigga from Mansfield." I'm like, "Bro, shut up."
Chill out.
Chill.
EB Mansfield's a Crip hood out here.
Yeah, so I'm like, I'm not. I live in West LA. And then that would start the conversation. You know, he got to the point where it'd be gang members in there. And he'd say that, and somebody's like, hold on. Hey, you know this nigga, you know this weird nigga named Nick? And they'd be like, that's the big homie, cuz. And I'm like, so, like.
You're good. You're all good.
But he thrust me into this world where people didn't think. And then at the same time, I found out, like, Corrupt and all these other dudes didn't think that the underground West Coast lyrical dudes fuck with them. So that's how I started booking them for paid dues. I was like, man, come on.
Oh, paid dues. You got to talk about paid dues for sure. Because I feel like.
So I was like, man, Rock the Bells Festival, the original Rock the Bells Festival, was only like Wu-Tang and all this East Coast stuff. And then my business partner was the guy who founded that. So when I got to my 5th year of paid dues, I was like, look, man, Corrupt and Raekwon are the same to a lot of us, man. Like, we grew up on both, a lot of us. Let me put Dog Pound and Raekwon on the same bill. You know, all the gangbangers. I was like, man, stop. It's going to be good. Then I started bringing Quick around. I just started, like, using that to be, and then I start, like, booking Kendrick and Dom and Nipsey. And I'm like, these are, and we kind of just started merging. I started merging my worlds because I just wanted, like, Nipsey. I like Nipsey because Nipsey was authentic. Like I said, I just don't.
Yeah.
I like the pop stuff from the West Coast, but pop gangster rap is just not for me. I've been around too much real shit to like truly enjoy it the way I shouldn't enjoy. You know what I'm saying? But I do.
The way you shouldn't, yeah.
You know, I feel it because there's an authenticity to it that wouldn't and shouldn't resonate on the pop charts. But Dre knows how to take that authenticity and sell it. That's his brilliance. He could shine it up. You know, everybody is a testament to like, this record was produced by something, but until Dre mixed it, it wasn't a hit.
Till he mixed it, made it there, yeah.
And so that's not my. You look at how I dress, how I look. Like I'm not a shiny dude. I like dirty, authentic, and that's why what appealed to me about the Wu-Tang. You know, like it was dirty, it was grimy, and on the West Coast, dirty and grimy stuff wasn't selling. The Wu-Tang, Puffy created a need for that. The shiny suit created a need for Wu-Tang to balance it out. The West Coast, Dre didn't. He knew how to finesse it. You could get both. It was pop, but it was still grimy. You can't take the Crip out of Snoop. You could gloss up the Crip on Snoop, but you can't take that out. You
never take it out. Never.
That's real. Gloss it up. I mean, because Super Bowl was definitely a glossed up. That was the most glossy Crip thing ever. They had choreographed Crip walking. So as you said, it's like and it got a pass because it's Snoop. If it had been somebody else, it's like if there had been somebody else performing with some Crip walkers who was choreographed, it wouldn't work. So
it wouldn't
makes
work.
all the sense. Yeah,
and that's Dre's. You know, Puffy did it with Biggie. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But after Biggie passed, he didn't. It's because it takes a very special person to do what Dre does and what Puffy did with Biggie. And to do it again, it's a 1 in a million chance. You know what I'm saying? Like Dre hasn't done it since. It hasn't been done since.
I mean, because he had Game, and Game was it was way different.
It was
Game is not. Yeah,
but times were different.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying?
Times were different at that point. Yeah,
if he could have had Game and Snoop at the same time, like a universally, and I guess I'll have to say pause for the homophobic listeners, but a universally sexy gangbanger. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Woo, it would have been over.
Yeah. That's real though.
Like
at that time.
Biggie wasn't sexy. You know what I'm saying?
Nope.
And Pac wasn't really rooted in gang culture like that. He was a thug, but he wasn't a Blood or a Crip, you know? Not yet.
Yeah.
He was becoming a Blood.
Not yet.
You know what I'm saying? And
he wasn't really from it yet. Yeah.
Yeah, and so like that would have killed the game. If Snoop could take his shirt off like Game did and still be a Crip, it would have been over.
Though.
If Biggie could have went shirtless like Pac, like there was but I think also East Coast, when that line, Jay-Z, who's the best MC, Biggie, Jay-Z, or Nas? No one in the projects in LA was talking about that. We might start having that conversation. Hood niggas in LA do not give a fuck what you're saying. Nobody was. I was listening to Stranded on Death Row like, woo, Corrupt killed that shit. No one else. There was no one to have that conversation with.
I mean, because Corrupt was talking about that on one of his interviews about how even when he got with Snoop, they met battling, but he said Corrupt came from Philly, so he was more lyrically battling, and then Snoop was being just super laid back, talking about lowriders and this and that during a battle, but the crowd being LA gravitated towards Snoop because it fit the vibe, but Corrupt was over their heads almost because it was like it was really a whole it was segmented back then. It was where, like you said, LA had the Project Blow, the Licks, all these artists who had the lyricism to them, but the average person who's riding around was not really playing it the same way. And I guess it's somewhat comparable for Atlanta with Outkast versus how now it's the Future Gucci Mane era. Even though Future came from Dungeon Family, it's where a lot of fans who love the trap Atlanta don't like Outkast as much. Like they damn near did see them as weirdos, even when they were at their peak. It was like that's not representing what we are on the daily.
If they had they had an option, they wouldn't have chose Outkast. Outkast went hard because Atlanta had no other choice. They had to like fuck it, we with them.
And the whole nation rock with it. So but before we head out, we gotta talk about paid dues real quick too. So for anybody who is not familiar, you mentioned it real quick. You mentioned it, and that was a backstory that I didn't even think about. How I'll say this: like Rock the Bells is one of the original festivals that really is the reason that there's so many festivals today. We talk about it almost as a joke that it's a festival every weekend now nationwide. But the way you mentioned it, paid dues is really the one that did bring different types of rappers together because, like as you said, Rock the Bells was more so kind of the East Coast, the lyrical, same kind of era, same 90s-ish era. Paid dues, and I'll thank you once again for putting me on paid dues as the stage DJ in 2013 because that's really what really broke me out here. And you had me on stage DJing where, of course, the main stage is Kendrick, but we had Dom Kennedy, Nipsey, Problem, we had Joey Badass, we had Trinidad James, Juicy J. And as you said, like at that time, 9 years ago, it wasn't that many concerts that brought that many different artists and generations together at one time. So like, how was it as far as just how you created that and then even how it ended up dissolving? Like, how did that whole process feel to you? Like,
it was just a need. I went on the Warped Tour, and I always tell my homeboy Atmosphere, who took me on the tour. He took me on Warped Tour, and I was just around white people like I'd never been in my life. It was a whole summer. But like there was a band called Sum 41, and they're one of the biggest. They were the number one punk band at the time. Yeah. And at night, they were having barbecues, pouring shots for people, kicking it. I was like, man, we need this, bro. Like, at that point, still, like I knew it was, I didn't know Snoop yet, but I knew Snoop was around like that. I knew Dub was around like that. Like, I felt like if I could bring everybody together, I grew up like at Martin's Records off Pico, like everybody would come through, Wu-Tang come through, like everybody, so I was like, man, we like to just all smoke and eat. Why don't we have more things like this? And also for my genre, for underground rap, independent rap, there was Summer Jam for commercial rap, but there was no concert for hip hop. A 13-year-old, 11-year-old, I saw like them getting dropped off out of minivans. White kids, young white kids getting dropped off. Oh, it's Vans Warped Tour, let the kids go. And same thing as Summer Jam, but it wasn't as safe in LA. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, that was a big thing in the 90s too.
Young kids went to Summer Jam, and then you went back to school like, oh, I saw 50 Cent, or I saw Jay-Z, or I saw whoever was hot in R&B and rap and mainstream. But we weren't going to have a future until we built a festival like that. So I met the dude who did Rock the Bells one day on a humbug, and I was like, yo, I got this idea. We need like a Warped Tour for independent hip hop. I know you Rock the Bells has the 90s and the mainstream, but I think in the first one I had to perform 3 times, like because there wasn't enough indie groups. But as I started doing it, I started hearing things like, oh, there's these kids called Black Hippie, and this kid named Kendrick Lamar. He got the song Pussy Patron, and Nip started doing his thing. Terrence put me onto that, so I was like, okay, cool. Like, Hustle in the House that just dropped. I'm hearing about Dom Kennedy. I'm like, I need a platform. I need to expand this platform. First, it was just indie backpack hip hop, and my goal was to have all independent rap. It was supposed to be Def Jux, Hieroglyphics, Living Legends, and Rap A Lot. Because that was, and I was like, yo, let's get Ghetto Boys, Devin, and one other group from Rap A Lot. Let's get 3 acts, Aesop Rock, Murs, and Mr. Lift. Let's get, Souls of Mischief, and just mix it all up. But you had to be independent. And then from there,
I get that.
One day I'm in DC at the Rock the Bells, and I'm backstage, and a little white kid comes up to me and he's like, I want to do Pay Dues one day. And he gives me his mixtape, and this mixtape called Kids. And his name is Mac Miller.
Oh, wow.
And I'm like, yo, and I got in the car. DC traffic, the worst thing ever.
DC is worse than LA. Ever.
Yeah. So I'm like, man, I ain't got shit to listen to in this rental. Let's put in this kid's demo. And I looked at my ex-wife and I was like, oh, this kid's out of here. This kid, oh my God. It was me and Wale talking. I'll never forget. He waited till we finished talking. He was like, yo, check this out. And I booked him for Pay Dues. And it was just like, I just started doing like A&R shit. And my career started tanking after that because I was so focused on listening to who was next. You know what I'm saying? Like I was at the first Odd Future show at the Roxy. Wasn't even sold out. And afterwards, I'm like, bam, y'all want to do Pay Dues? Yeah. And as the story goes, I don't know if it's true, but I was there. Like Tyler wasn't trying to hear me. He's like, oh, we doing Coachella. But Paul Toilette, who founded Coachella, was a mentor of mine. He let me shadow him for a couple Coachellas and just learn the business on how to throw a festival. And he will always, because there's something called a radius clause. So if an artist is doing Coachella, they can't do a show within 100 or 200 miles, 120 days before and 120 days after.
I was thinking there was something like that.
But for me, he would lift the radius clause. So like Little Brother, they were doing Coachella. And then they were able to come into the region and get 2 checks. So I told Odd Future, I was like, y'all can do both. I'm the one person who could get you out of your radius clause with Coachella because Paul, shout out to him, he's so kind. And he knew that my little festival wasn't fucking what his Coachella said.
It wasn't going to be a threat.
Nope. Yeah. So he was always kind. And he didn't do it. Tyler and them told me, nah. I was like, all right. But then they were thinking it was some backpack shit. And then the next week, my assistant was their tour manager. My assistant became their tour manager. And he's like, he started telling them he's talking about Pay Dues. He's like, man, they had Lil B, the bass guy, Nipsey, E40, and Black Star. And he was like, what? I thought it was just some backpack shit. I was like, nah. And so he's like, I'll do it next year. So the next year was our best year because I got to do Dipset, Odd Future, Wu-Tang, Hieroglyphics, Boot Camp Click, Living Legends, and just put it all, Mac Miller, Kendrick Lamar, like Section 80 Kendrick Lamar, right when he dropped that. Like it was like the perfect storm. And it was all at levels. And that's why I get, and then Tyler was like, I want one. He's like, I want a festival.
Okay, yeah.
And that's what, as a black man, that's all I can hope for is that I can inspire someone. But my only thing, and Tyler used to do some cool shit, like have a French band and Migos, and but Rolling Loud, you're only gonna see one type of thing. How the West was won, you're only gonna see one type of thing, and that's what makes me like. I was thinking Coachella, I was thinking Warped Tour, because Warped Tour would have hardcore bands and pop punk bands. It would have all kind of punk rock. It just didn't have pop punk. You know what I'm saying? And same thing with Coachella. You're gonna see all type. Well, now they kind of just have pop rap. But I'd done Coachella 4 times before niggas even knew what that was.
Oh wow!
And it was like, it was different brands. You know,
before
what I'm
it's mainstream to black audiences, especially.
Yeah. So now they
just the Stallion and all that.
Yeah, like you couldn't put Foxy Brown on Coachella when I was doing Coachella. You know what I'm saying? Like it wouldn't happen. It was like all authentic underground kind of vibes, indie rock, and then like if it went pop, it was Red Hot Chili Peppers, but I don't even consider them pop. You know what I'm saying? Like Red Hot Chili Peppers is like what Redman is to black people. Redman could go triple platinum, but he's still under.
That's real.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
there's
still
authenticity to it. So that was Coachella. Now Coachella kind of jumped the shark, and it's a pop festival. It's like a huge summer jam. But that's
is,
when my inspiration was that. And so my challenge to this generation is like, yo, do something where you include everybody. So that like my beauty, when people hated Odd Future because Odd Future dissed underground rap, they dissed Immortal Technique, and I still booked them.
Oh wow.
And I was like, you guys don't get to dictate what hip hop is, especially when there's a black man in control. But kids coming to me and say, my dad got to see Wu-Tang that day, and I got to put him on the Odd Future that day. I became a Wu-Tang fan. My dad became an Odd Future fan. Like,
that bridge is important.
That generational bridge.
And nobody's doing that. Everybody's stuck in it, back in their zones. And it was really difficult for me to do paid dues, and eventually it dissolved. We had our biggest year last year. We did 30,000 plus tickets.
2013?
Yeah.
Man, that was legendary.
Black Hippie, right when Macklemore hit with Thrift Shop, he was #1 on the charts, and Kendrick was #1 in Black Hippie, and it was a perfect storm. And then after that, my partner had some financial difficulties with Rock the Bells that affected pay dues. But honestly, by then I was tired of doing pay dues because it had just gotten too big. It had gotten to the point where I lost myself as an artist. And and it wasn't what dealing with artists is a very thankless job. And it was just like,
I believe,
and then, like, and for me too, I also like, without that bridge, like, my brother, it was like, motherfuckers would start talking crazy. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, and I'm like, I may look like that guy. I may like be, but my family, you can't do that to me, bro. And so I was like, don't threaten me and try to get on the bill, and don't try to show up with a bunch of people, because I'm gonna meet you at every level. And so it just got to a point where it was too many politics. And as my agent says, the juice wasn't worth the squeeze. And so when it went away, I was kind of happy. I was like, man, like,
you were relieved, though.
Yeah, I was like, it's good. I did what I came to do. And I sacrificed my career for that festival. And my only wish is that I wish Rolling Loud would combine with whatever LL's doing at Rock the Bells now. It needs to be both. It needs to be Lil Uzi and LL on the same festival.
Understood. I get that.
Because no black kid, as much as they like Lil Uzi, is gonna go, I'm not going. That's what black people don't realize. Like, no old person is gonna go, Lil Uzi performing. They gonna see LL and Rock. They gonna go. Diggable Planets, LL cool. I'm going. I don't care who's on the other stage. And that's what people would say. I would always structure the bills so you would never be forced to choose between Mobb Deep and Souls of Mischief. You could go see Mobb Deep because Trinidad James is playing at the same time as Mobb Deep on the other stage.
It made sense, And
for concessions, and I'll break it down just so motherfuckers can understand. For concessions, that's great because you're forcing people to migrate from stage to stage, and in between they're gonna get a beer. In between they're gonna buy merch. So it's great for the vendors, it's great for the crowd, and it's great, and it's great for the people who just want to get to the front. But at that point, our kids like, I peed in a cup just so I could see Kendrick. And these were the same kids that when Kendrick opened for me at House of Blues, I watched them go like this. So what?
And same kids too.
Same kids.
Same ones.
And now, like, man, I peed in a cup just so I could be in the front row for Black Hippie. I was like, bro, you guys. And so it's unfortunate that it went away. I think, whether people want to acknowledge it or not is definitely a key element as to why the West Coast from that era blew up. And,
for sure.
And I'm happy.
Came with,
because we finally had our different lanes like New York. Now we have a Tyler, a Kendrick, a Snoop, a YG. We finally
Tyga here, Vince Staples.
It's Tyga. I met Tyga because he was cousins with Travie McCoy from Gym Class Heroes.
He was.
And he was opening on the paid dues stage in 2008 at Rock the Bells doing the Obama song. Obama, and put the lime in the coconut.
Wow. And
but backstage, early he was with a gang of hood ass niggas. And I was like, yo. Because, like, I walked into a room on Rock the Bells, we in Maryland, and I'm like, who are these, like, Compton niggas? The fuck? Like,
you can see him. As soon as you see him.
Yeah, I'm like.
As soon as you see him.
Because it's like Ghostface eating cereal over here. Like, the backstage of Rock the Bells are crazy. Pharaoh Monts is right here getting some waters. And I was like, these niggas don't belong. Who the fuck?
Who are these? How y'all get over here?
I'm like, how you on stage doing the lime and the coconut? And so I seen, but it was he was on the paid dues stage, along with Slum Village, along with Pete Rock, along with Raekwon, along with me. And it was like along with Tech Nine. And I was like, this is And it always backstage, we all got to get together. It's the only place you're gonna see Tiger. I can see it still now. Ghostface was sitting right here, and Tiger and all these Compton niggas was sitting right here. And that
in harmony.
It opens up lines of communication. It keeps us strong, and it's like a family reunion. And so whoever I can charge with that, you know, it would be a lot. I think it would be a lot less problems if niggas knew every summer at whatever fest, I'm gonna see my family. Like, you know, like me and you, the second week in July this summer, I'm gonna see you in Bascom at our 107th family reunion. Literally,
Bowers reunion. Same type deal.
And that's how we stayed close through all these years. And I think we need to take what our ancestors did, because we're all family. And that's, you know, there's been a lot of deaths. And that's when I hate to see what happened with Draco. And that's the stuff that makes me want to get involved. Because when I was doing my festival, I would tell my partners, like, you got Nipsey room next to who? No. Move them over there. And then I went down to Nipsey's shop and I talked to everybody. Like, this is what it's gonna be, bro. Even Tyler, I went to set with Tyler and I was like, who you got beef with, bro? You know, back in his cockroach eating days, that nigga was, why he was saying all kind of shit. And I was like, bro, who I gotta keep you away from? You know, there was an issue with some Florida niggas and I had to call and I had to cancel it. I was like, okay. I had to go with the bigger artists and I was just like, I can't book you, bro. Same thing with a couple LA artists. A couple years I had to be like, you know, I know you from blah, 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 and you could come up there, but such and such is headlining, and if y'all come up there, he's going to be scared. And don't do it. Just don't do it.
I mean, that's 2009 or 10. We can't even talk about it on here, but I remember which one you're talking about, because there was a little bit of a situation, and I remember it.
But I was able to get down in the trenches and have these conversations. And
to mellow it out.
You need to be able to, you have to have FOI presence. You have to have people in the community present. Whether it's getting such and such pastor from First AME and blah, 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 or gang intervention, you know what I'm saying? To be there. And not the celebrity gangbangers, because it's all, you know, get people who don't have 100,000 followers on Instagram to be real peacemakers, people who want to be famous for making peace, not for, you know, clout. Right. And you got to have them on, or, you know, you just can't look at who's hot, you know? And that's the thing, is like, okay, and you make concessions. I told those people that I had to tell them, I was like, look, I'll book you for this show in 6 months if you promise not to come fuck with so-and-so. You know what I'm saying? Because there's enough money if we keep the festivals going. And as a festival promoter, I'll let everyone know. Another behind the scenes thing is the PD used to look at my lineup.
Oh, wow.
Oh, you got such and such and such and such? Oh, we're going to need an extra 10 off-duty cops. Each cop gets paid double time to show up. It's all a hustle. Because Pay Dues never had any violence. We never had one problem. And every year they would hit me over the head. Oh, yeah, well, we're going to have to bring in the horses for this year. Because, man, okay. And for me, it wasn't about the money. So I was like, whatever they say, because I'm going to show them that there's no problem. But as I continue to show them that we wouldn't have any problems, they continue to,
build and charge.
You're going to have,
it's free money for them.
You're going to have Dub C. Yeah. Oh, you're going to have, come on,
damn near extortion at that point.
But we do it. But then imagine when you give them a reason. Imagine when there's an actual stabbing or shooting at one. Then you're making the promoters, and then they get out of the hip hop business. We'll be back to the 90s. People don't remember, like, there was no tour for Niggas for Life. It was illegal to throw rap shows. When I saw Wu-Tang in an abandoned warehouse in downtown LA where you had to call a number to get the address because they couldn't put it on the flyer. Like, that's how I saw Nas. Wow. That's how I saw some of these acts, because you couldn't do a rap show. You know, it was a liability. And so we worked our way back to this point, and I think that's another problem with our history, is we don't talk about it. So the youngsters don't appreciate that, and they're about to. And when the money, imagine if COVID took a lot of that money away, but now you guys are going to put us into another form of COVID with the violence.
Yeah,
where there's not going to be. We can have live shows, but nobody can have them because every time someone's getting shot or killed or stabbed or, you know, and the Travis Scott situation, that's horrible, man. You know, like it's just sad in general. But, you know, I what I will say to that is he doesn't study logistics.
Right.
He's an entertainer. That's not his role. I mean, that's real.
And that's you know, for me, like, I did study logistics because I took a back seat. It wasn't Murs headlining every year. I wanted to literally build up the scene. So I put people over me. I just wanted people to come, and also enabled me. I know how much each stanchion and how much each bicycle barricade costs. And I was watching them plot out the plot. Like I said, I was in the meetings with the PD and the paramedics. How many do we need? I want you to see a black face when we're talking to the chief of police. This, and then in the morning I would show up and meet with the security guards like, don't take nobody's weed. Don't be rough with people. This is not the type of festival we want. If you have a problem, call me. If there is violence, call me. And that's why I got to do things at the LA County Museum. And, people call me to do and there needs to be someone like that in our culture who can do these things, who's going to force the Lil Uzi LL Cool J issue. They don't have to collab, but we don't have to keep rolling loud over here and rock the bells over here, because that's going to separate a generation of black folks, and we're not going to have a bridge to our youngsters. And that's what hip hop is. It's youth culture, for better or worse, it's youth culture. And it keeps us young, but in order for us to stay young, we got to give some credit and credence to the youth and not shit on them all the time. Because Lil Uzi can breakdance. Juice WRLD can freestyle his ass off. Like, these motherfuckers love hip hop too. And just because they don't love it, your kids don't love your wife the same way you love your wife, obviously. You fuck your wife. Your son loves his mother and will kill for her. You love your wife and you'll kill for her, but it's a different kind of love. And these kids love this culture. Yeah. And we love this culture. We just don't love it the same way. And that's okay. Right. And we need to love each other. You know what I'm saying? We are father and son, uncle and nephew. We are a family. And this is how, I think, at the top of that, whether people want to admit it or not, also would pay dues. Gang violence in LA was down. Not that was, it was just part of it.
Yeah. That was a big,
It was not the cause, it could have been a byproduct of whatever, but it helped. You know what I mean? It gave young black kids something to shoot for. And, you know what I mean? Without having to shoot for radio. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like, motherfuckers never thought that you could rap for that many people and not be on the radio. And that's
real, yeah.
That was like Tyrese saw footage of Pay Dues when we had the same manager. He was like, man, you got a real pop crowd. And I was like,
it was that type of crowd. So,
but he judged it by the race. Because Tyrese has never done a show that's been mixed. It's everybody auntie and everybody.
That's true. For Tyrese is always black. Yeah, it's always an all black.
So he saw my stuff, and to me, he's the pop artist.
Yeah,
that's a good point.
And as I got in these rooms, I said, man, there's a lot that and I would show up to the studio in cowboy boots and basketball shorts, and motherfuckers thought I was weird, and my hair sticking straight up.
Yeah,
but
whole different levels. So
I'm talking too much. I want to say this before I get out of here. DJ R-Tistic is a musical wonderkind. He was producing.
That's my first time hearing that word.
At a young age. His father is an amazing jazz drummer, and he was producing and had a 4-track recorder when most kids had Nintendo. He still had PlayStation, Nintendo.
I still had him. Yeah.
And hella starting lineup. If y'all know what starting lineup is, he's the king of starting lineup. Yep.
I still got some
little sports action figures. But man,
got the cream.
Got some.
And I'm still hurt that he doesn't go back to producing. But he's I'm trying to think of more DJ R-Tistic. His mom is deep in the streets. If you ever in Watts, Gardena, or Compton, you have a problem with the OGs, say Miss Turner, and you good. I can't tell you how many times I've been around. Oh, Miss Turner, that's your people's. Oh, I love her. Man.
Watts.
Tell Miss Turner
Watts for 10 years. So,
tell Miss Turner I love her, man. And so there's a lot. I think I could go on and on about my cousin, but he has an ear. He's musically trained. He's brilliant, and I can't say it. I'm so proud of you, man. I wanted to tell you that. I know we don't cross paths a lot now because you're busy, and I'm not going outside like that. I'm married. I can't be where you at.
We're trying to get you back outside. No, I appreciate you for everything that you've done for me, and look, and that's what it is. I feel like once you are back outside, of course, you raising kids, you being an actual dad now, so you ain't supposed to be outside like that. Yeah,
when are you gonna come inside, bro? I'm gonna tell you. I'm gonna put that out there, bro.
Man, I talked to my mom. My mom is begging for that, so it'll happen when it happens.
No, not when it happens, bro. You gotta have a plan, bro.
You gotta have a plan.
I get you.
You stand up at that booth. You look out at a sea of available women.
You're right.
Find one And then I can explain to you the baby part, how you do that. Maybe you don't.
Man, look, hey, I appreciate you a whole lot for coming through. We're gonna have to. We got over here cutting up exactly. So man, that's how it is. No, thank you a whole lot for coming through. To everybody who is tuned in, y'all follow Murs everywhere on social media.
Don't do it. If you black, you went to HBCU, I ain't got nothing for you. Black people don't like my music. They don't even like the way I look.
Man,
whatever with that.
I love y'all.
Whatever.
But go, follow DJ R-Tistic and follow Papa R-Tistic on Twitch.
Yeah, he be on Twitch cutting up too. He be on there acting up. So
he be acting up on there.
Oh, he be talking. He worse than me. He be talking on there. Yeah,
I gotta get on this stream and see what he be talking about.
You got to. He be having some his old school sense of humor. I'm like, all right. So once again, we're so appreciative to have Murs on there dropping so many gems for us. So I guess it's that time, EB. It is time for that beat match. So each and every episode, we conclude with the beat match where we take two artists, albums, songs, eras, whatever it could be. It could be clothing brands. I don't know. We ain't doing all that, but whatever it could be. And we compare them against each other, and we basically judge to see who will come out on top in a battle. So for this episode, we're gonna have our producer, Miss Naledi. She's gonna be the sole judge for this episode, and she'll be able to give say who she feels came out strongest with their argument. So EB,
yes sir.
So of course you Brooklyn, you representing that New York, you up there now. That's your new home. So of course Jay-Z is, if not the greatest, right up there with the greatest, whoever that might be. I think we basically agree there. Reasonable Doubt, and then I would say Blueprinter is just his best two albums, period. Yep. And then when it comes to the third best, where would you go?
I know I'm gonna piss some people off and they're gonna not understand, but I gotta go with Volume 2, Hard Knock Life.
Volume 2?
Yeah.
All right. I mean, that might make top 5 for me, maybe. I'm gonna say Black Album. Almost easily my third favorite from Jay, I'm gonna say. And we're gonna get into it. So the way this goes, each of us get 3 minutes to explain our case. Then we get 2 rebuttals. And then from there, we'll have our producer, Naledi, as the sole judge to say who came out on top. So EB, as my co-host, let everybody know, why do you think Volume 2 would be Jay's third best album, or at least why would you even pick it over the Black Album, even if it's not about where it ranks? Either way.
Yeah. And this is no diss to the Black Album, because I do love the Black Album. I think everybody loves the Black Album. But I feel that in Volume 2 was the last time that we got grimy underground Jay before the commercial success. I think Volume 2 saw that shift, that transition, where he went from, the streets as we knew him to now one of the most recognizable faces and names in commercial hip hop. It is still his best-selling album, like, ever. It's still the one that made him Jay-Z. I love the themes on the album. I mean, like, he had strategically chosen to go for these pop singles, or pop-ish singles, pop sounding singles. We got the Hard Knock Life with the Annie sample. We got Nigga What, Nigga Who. We got Money Cash Hoes with DMX, and then we got like Can I Get a What with a Millie and Ja Rule, and also Money Ain't a Thing with JD. It was one of those albums that the singles, although they were made for radio, they were made to be commercial, like that, almost like Shiny Suit, singles. The album tracks, though, they were straight Brooklyn. They were gritty. I think that it was one of the, I don't want to say first times, but for him to have both Foxy and a MILF to show love to 2 women rappers on the album, have them featured on the album, I thought that was big. The collaborations overall were amazing. He got Memphis Bleek, Big Jazz. That was like, I think, the last time that he and Big Jazz really worked together. DMX, Too Short, Ja Rule, The Lox, Beanie Siegel. Then he had like Kid Capri. Like, he really put his best into this album. And even with the production, he had DJ Premier, he had Swiss Beats, Stevie J, Timbaland, and Irv Gotti. It kind of was like he was speaking to both the commercial side with the radio and the MTV generation or the BET generation, but he was still speaking to Brooklyn. I don't think that was the same by the time we got to the Black Album. No, like I said, no diss against the Black Album, but a lot of it was hype, in my opinion, and he sold that on "I'm about to retire. This is the last one. This is the last one." So I think that we kind of put that album on a pedestal in a way that has it rival, some of the other albums that I think are just a lot better than the Black Album from Jay-Z. I don't think it's a bad album, but it's just not it's not an album that I would put so high up on the list.
Understood. I mean, I'll say that Volume 2 is definitely what made Jay-Z a star, and it felt like in some ways it parallels what Nas did when it comes to Reasonable Doubt versus Illmatic. Illmatic was Nas first, and then he went to that Source Awards. He didn't win anything. He didn't get any acclaim, so he went way more commercial for It Was Rigging. So he got backlash. A little bit of a parallel to Jay with Reasonable Doubt. He came out the gate so lyrical, so street. Didn't really get the acclaim at the time, and then he came back with Volume 1, which had the commercial tracks, the I Know What Girls Like and the Sunshine, which a lot of folks still hate. Looking back, it wasn't as bad as people say it was, but I mean, it just wasn't what people wanted from him being somebody who had really been around for years. So when he got to Volume 2, yeah, like that's when he was really starting to find himself. He was finding himself, and that's kind of where it is to me. He was finding himself. He wasn't quite there yet. He had the hits. I'm going to give him that. He had those major hits, and they did have different lanes, but at the same time, it's like, just to be real, as big as it was, nobody really wants to hear the Hard Knock Life anymore with Annie. Like, it was a great novelty track. The concept was crazy. The fact that he took this old school, early 1900s stage play, joking off the 1900s thing that Murs was talking about with his son, like taking this old school stage play type sample and making it about the street. It was a brilliant concept, but you don't really hear that the same way. That song is basically the opposite of what I would say a PSA is. I remember when PSA back in 03 when Black Album dropped, I'm gonna be all the way real. I was in college. I couldn't afford too many CDs, so I said, you know what? Before I actually buy it, I'm gonna download it. So I had a modem. I didn't have high speed, so I couldn't just download like the whole album in 10 minutes. It took like 30, 40 minutes per song. So I remember purposely saying, oh, that's just the interlude. I'll download that one later because it's just the interlude. I'm going to ignore that. And I get to the club that weekend and I hear this song and the whole crowd knows it. And I'm like, what Jay-Z song is this? And everybody's like, PSA, the interlude. I'm like, wait, the interlude? That's the interlude? And I'm mad at myself for skipping that song. So the next day I download that right away. So I missed that one song when I first heard the whole album because I just skipped that one purposely. I already even skipped the singles because I already had those. But all that to say, by the time we got the Black Album, you had Polished J who really knew how to handle any type of track, any type of lane. Even that Blueprint, even Blueprint 2, I would say, both of those blueprints, he still tended to struggle when it came to making commercial records. As many hits as he had, it was still where he kind of threw darts. And it was like, the thing that changed from Volume 1 up to Blueprint 1 and 2 is that he's throwing these darts and he might only be 20% successful with a commercial hit on Volume 1. By the time he's at Blueprint 1 and 2, he's at like 60%. But if you think about it, some of those album cuts were meant to be single type songs, but they just weren't strong enough. You think about That Nigga Jigga and Hola Jovito, those were cool tracks, but those were still not like the greatest as far as being commercial singles. By the time he got to Black Album, he had polished that, and I'm gonna hand it back to you.
I get all of that, and I do think that he was a lot more polished. And I, like I said, it was a lot more commercial in a way, and that's what really sold that album combined with the hype of Retirement or the last album. Volume 2 was just it was the authentic Brooklyn Jay that so many people had grown to love. Like, he had grinded and really made a name for himself, literally made a name for himself before that album. And once that album hit, the world knew who he was. And I think that he almost kind of changed history a bit. Like that was the album that he won the Grammy for best rap album, and you know, the boycott of the Grammys because they were not airing the rap category. You know, it was a statement that we won't just be commercialized. We won't just be shiny. We won't just be another name on the list of categories that don't air. Jay kind of changed the game.
I mean, I can get that, and I feel like the thing is with Black albums, I was saying about the commercial records that he was making. The thing I would say is that beyond Change Clothes, like, and then I would say Dirt Off My Shoulder or Dirt Off Your Shoulder was definitely a commercial. I mean, it was a single, obviously, but beyond that, he was not really being commercial. It was just that he was no longer the street person that he was when he made Reasonable Doubt. He was no longer in the streets, but he showed a very evolved Jay, and to me, it's one of the best, if not the best, just truly evolved. Like, I've made it. Like, it's supposed to be his grand opus. It's supposed to be his retirement, but it was like everything he was saying was really speaking on his career in a way that you hadn't heard a rapper do. It was like, it was his victory tour to me. I feel like it's rare that you have a rapper who can say, all right, this is my last album, which I knew it wasn't going to be his last album. We all knew that, obviously. We say if he don't die, he's not going to, if he dies, he's still going to have some Tupac albums come out. But either way, we knew it wasn't going to be his last album. But even with that, like, what more can I say? Literally, just the title alone just showed exactly, you know, what else is there to be said at this point? Like, he's achieved what he needed to achieve. He's done the street shit. He's rapped about that. And it's like, at this point, he's evolved. Like, every song on there, I feel like served a purpose. And
I mean,
and back to you. All right.
Yeah, I see why you make these arguments. And although the songs on the album, they all weren't as commercialized as the main singles, but it's almost like once they, and I think people know who I mean by they, catch on and they like your music and they have it, it kind of ruins the authenticity of it for me. And I'm not saying that the Black Album was a bad album at all by any means. Like, I won't tell that lie, not on this podcast. But what I'm saying is, it doesn't rank in my eyes as high as Volume 2. Like, even the musicality of it all, I think we got a grimier, grittier Jay who was hungry for it. He was hungry for the success. By the time we got to Black Album, you know, he was kind of just reflecting on the success because in his eyes and in the eyes of the world, he had made it. But it wasn't the same. It wasn't on the same level as while he was still hungry for it. Like, you know how when you really hungry for something and you really want it, like, you go hard. That's why I think his concept of having the singles be pop oriented and the album be gritty was just perfect.
I mean, I definitely hear it. I feel like, I think he was still hungry. I mean, the fact that he had such a crazy concept to have essentially a different producer for every single track. I'm talking about, he did have the Neptunes twice, but he had Just Blaze and Quick and Rick Rubin and M and Timbaland. And it was where he had all these different producers who were giving them Ninth Wonder. That album really brought Ninth Wonder to life. And I feel like every song on there basically served its purpose, from Moment of Clarity to 99 Problems, which was, of course, a single. But what he was talking about there was him saying, no matter how big I am, I'm still dealing with the same problems that y'all do with being Black. And I mean, everything on there to me served a purpose. I feel like Allure was one of the best tracks to be a nearly closer on the album, along with My First Song. And to me, it's just one of those albums that there's no weak point on there. I feel like even if people don't like Change Clothes and Go as much as anything else on there, it still was nothing close to a bad single. I mean, he had My Birthday representing December 4th. He had that as the second track on there. So I feel like overall, when you take those tracks individually, every song there is important. The fact that he had like 8 remix albums, how many times has that ever happened? He had 8 different remix albums that people made as fans and as other producers who were famous. So, I mean, I'm going to still ride with that. But either way, it's time to give it to our producer, Miss Naledi. Let us know, which one would you pick? Of course, you had Jay-Z concert experiences. I'm not sure which era of Jay you saw first or last, but I'm sure that might have some impact with it.
Yeah. I mean, this definitely was harder for me because he's my favorite rapper. So I've seen him probably 15 times. First time was around Volume 2. So,
okay.
I definitely went to the Hard Night Live tour and it was great. And I was in middle school. So I think I had one idea going into it, but based on your arguments, I'm actually kind of torn. I think EB, you have really strong arguments for Volume 2. I'm like, all of those hits back then and those features were just like, I mean, everybody wanted to be a part of it. Everybody wanted to be down. They're like, who's Rockefeller? Like, it was just, to me, a game changer for Def Jam too. And their tour kind of changed the game. But then the argument for Black Album is also one of my favorite albums. So I kind of went in thinking I was going to think of Black Album first, but I really think with the arguments of the variety of both albums and the different producers, I was like, okay, now it's a tie based on your arguments. So it was a little harder. I thought it wouldn't be, but because when I hear certain songs from Volume 2, I am immediately way more excited than some of that Black Album. But then when I listen to the full Black Album in its entirety, it's still very enjoyable. It just doesn't have the same nostalgia for me. So
yeah, I can see that. I will agree on that part of it. You know, listening to the Black Album in its entirety, it's an experience. But listening to Volume 2, like certain songs will come on and transport you right back to age 13 or 14.
Jigga What Jigga, like I told you last episode, whatever it was, Jigga What Jigga Who, when I heard that in class, I was like, what is this? Like, this is different. So I mean, overall, I can agree with that. I feel like Black Album to me might be a better like start to finish as far as the way that it flows, the way that each song kind of builds on each other. But Volume 2 had the standouts. That had the largest amount of hit singles for sure. So even though I was gonna say, can I get a what does kind of, I always associate that with Rush Hour because of the video and because Rush Hour soundtrack did come out before the J album technically, but it still counts. It does count. It wasn't like it was a bonus track, but it was just the fact that whenever I think about that video, I think about and low key Ja Rule kind of stuff.
And Ja Rule went hard. Ja Rule. That was the last time that I actually was like, yo, Ja Rule actually got skills.
That's when I was like, who is this dude? Because I don't think I really knew who he was till that. So when I heard that, I think that was before Holla Holla. Pretty sure I was before Holla Holla.
I think so.
So when I heard that, and back then, you remember, it sounds funny now, but we used to compare him to DMX. We were like, who is this? Like, is he a DMX clone? Because he got that rough voice. He was.
We did.
That's how a lot of us used to be back then.
No, we didn't know.
But Money Cash Hoes, like that
Money Cash Hoes, like that's still...
That can go up against a lot right now.
The instrumental can still like go up against these songs. Like just the...
And DMX killed him on that. Anyway.
Absolutely, he did.
DMX did own it.
He's DMX.
He owned it.
Kill everybody.
Yep.
Yeah, he did own that. He stole the whole show on that one. So, hey, but appreciate everybody for being tuned in. Once again, please rate and review us on Apple and Spotify podcasts. It helps others to find our show. If you have any suggestions, questions, or anything that you would like us to highlight, please send us an email to behindthewheelspod@gmail.com. Shout out to Melisa for being our producer, along with Naledi. And EB, where can they find you at?
Social media, EB4Prez. That's EB, the number 4. PREZ is in zebra. Eric B for president. You can find me on every social media platform at this point. Just look
all
me
over.
Up. Yeah,
all over the place. You said you on TikTok too, huh? You ain't doing no dance routines yet.
Listen, no dance routines yet. I have some ideas for the content I'm gonna create my channel around, but I'm just sitting on it for right now. I don't want nobody stealing my shit. So, but y'all follow me anyway.
I feel it. Hey, and find me. I'm on TikTok with the kids too. So
he is
DJ R-Tistic. I'm on Twitch under R-Tistic 310. I'm on IG and Twitter under the DJ R-Tistic with DJ R-Tistic with no A. That's all it is. And we'll get at y'all soon. We appreciate Murs for coming through.
Yeah.
And stay tuned. We got more coming for y'all. We appreciate you. R-Tistic out.
EB out.
Behind the Wheels is produced by Melisa D. Monts and Naledi.